Our film today kicks off with Mark suddenly jolted awake by his neighbor Linda desperately calling his name, warning him that something strange is happening. Oddly, Mark barely pays her any mind and drifts right back to sleep. A short while later, after waking up, he tries to open his window but finds it mysteriously jammed. He then notices a man in the building opposite standing and frantically pounding on his own window in a bizarre way. Yet again, Mark shrugs it off, gets ready, and heads to work as usual. However, he soon realizes the whole day is completely off. From the start, nothing is normal. The water is cut, the electricity is out, and worst of all, his phone has no signal. Despite the growing unease, Mark tries to keep his cool and carry on. Suddenly, his ex-wife calls, and they immediately start arguing, as usual, because he's late. Through their heated exchange, we learn he's missed a crucial final custody hearing for their children. This was his last chance to plead his case, and losing could mean losing his kids forever. Desperate, he tries to rush out, but is hit with the biggest shock yet. His front door is also jammed shut. He tries to explain the insane situation to his ex-wife, but the call abruptly drops as the signal fails completely. Now trapped, he looks out the window and sees all his neighbors are also locked in, banging on their windows for help. Looking down, he spots strange people in hazmat suits standing in the street below, completely indifferent to the terrified residents. Mark tries to contact Linda, thinking she might know something, and confirms she's trapped too. Before she can finish speaking, a loud noise cuts her off, and her voice disappears. As night falls, frustrated and desperate, Mark uses a tool to try and break the door, injuring his hand in the process. A loudspeaker then crackles to life with a message urging everyone to remain calm, that the situation is under control and will be resolved soon, an announcement that explains nothing. Before Mark can process this, a wall breaks down, and a frantic young man named Sergei bursts in with his eerily quiet younger brother, Nico. Sergei thought they were the only ones trapped, but is shocked to find the entire building is sealed off with no escape. Soon, they are joined by two neighbors, Sally, a nurse, and Aiden, who works for the government. Aiden is visibly terrified and convinced the authorities are hiding something dangerous from them. All communication with the outside world is dead. Another loudspeaker announcement claims a medical team has arrived to handle a gas leak and tells everyone to stay indoors. The neighbors watch in horror as the team below sets up hospital-like tents and forcibly brings people inside. Their worst fears are confirmed when they see the medical staff spraying chemicals and brutally shooting a resident who tries to escape. Realizing they are in a catastrophe, the group gives up hope of leaving. Hours later, Sergei notices hazmat-clad teams forcibly entering apartments opposite them, violently dragging people out and killing anyone who resists. Panicked, Mark remembers he has some chemicals in his apartment that could dissolve the substance sealing the doors. They quickly find it, mix the compounds, and manage to melt the seal and force their door open. But freedom is short-lived. They have no way out of the building, and to make matters worse, Nico goes missing. They find the boy hiding in a ventilation shaft, where he witnesses a horrifying scene. Staff forcing an elderly woman to take an injection, after which she immediately collapses, coughing violently. Nico is spotted, and Sergei barely manages to pull him to safety as the staff try to grab him. In the ensuing chaos, Sergei attacks and kills one of the hazmat workers. Mark stops Sergei from killing the second worker, who turns out to be a woman named Hazel. They take her hostage, hoping to learn the truth. Through her radio, her colleague tries to negotiate, insisting they are there to help. Sergei, enraged, threatens the colleague over the radio. Under immense pressure, Hazel finally confesses. A deadly, airborne virus has broken out in their area. It's fatal, with symptoms starting with severe coughing and breathing issues, leading to blindness and complete organ failure. The government has sealed off the entire zone, cut all utilities and communications, and abandoned them to protect the rest of the country. There is no cure. Sergei, furious, tries to rip off Hazel's mask. Mark intervenes and removes it himself. Hazel warns them that an experimental antidote exists, but its results aren't guaranteed. She urges them to stay inside and wait for the government to gain control. The group is paralyzed with indecision until nightfall, when Hazel tries to escape. Sergei catches her and brutally attacks her in a blind rage. Marc tries to stop him, and in the struggle, Sergei accidentally hits Nico. The boy starts crying hysterically. At that moment, a large crowd of civilians gathers outside the building, demanding to know what's happening. They see the hazmat teams and panic. Hazel warns that letting them in would be disastrous, as they might be infected and spread the virus faster. The building's security intercom then activates. A voice demands to know where the vaccines are, revealing that Hazel's team was killed and she is the only one who knows the details. The group decides to barricade the door against the angry mob outside. In the ensuing invasion attempt, Sally is accidentally shot. Sergei throws a smoke grenade to drive the crowd back, but Sally's wound is fatal and she bleeds out in their arms. Aiden, who loved her, is devastated and disappears. They later discover he took Hazel's suit and tried to escape outside, only to be mistaken for a doctor by the crowd and then shot dead by a sniper. Sergei sees a new hazmat team approaching, determined to enter. Knowing they must flee, Marc insists on taking Hazel with them. Sergei refuses, knocks Marc unconscious, and leaves him. When Marc comes to, Hazel is gone. Looking outside, he sees hazmat teams preparing to flood the area with gas. He finds his group, attacks Sergei in a fury, and nearly strangles him before Linda stops him, but it's too late. Poisonous gas begins to fill the building. They all run to the second floor, trying to reach the roof. On the way, Marc finds Hazel's lifeless body. They finally make it to the roof, gasping for air, and hide, exhausted, until morning. When Marc wakes up, he discovers that Linda has died in the night. He tells Nico she's just sleeping to protect him. Looking out, Marc sees a city in ruins, the virus having spread everywhere. Knowing they must leave immediately, he carries Nico on his back, telling him to close his eyes as if it's a game, and runs through the horrifying, corpse-strewn building. They finally escape, only to find the streets completely deserted. A new warning blares. Anyone on the street without authorization will be arrested. Thinking quickly, Marc puts on a hazmat suit he finds and takes Nico with him, hoping to blend in. However, they are confronted by a man from another building who, thinking Marc is a government doctor, takes Nico hostage. Blaming the government for his family's death, he threatens to kill the boy. Nico manages to break free at the last second, and Marc fights the man, getting seriously wounded in the process. They stumble into an abandoned garden to rest. Bleeding heavily, Marc gives Nico his phone, making him promise to call for help the moment he finds a signal, and urges him to run and leave him behind. Reluctantly, Nico obeys. Shortly after, Marc is captured by hazmat personnel. Nico regains consciousness in what looks like a quarantine facility filled with children. A worker tries to comfort him, promising things will get better. Nico finds a photo of Marc and his family, and decides to try and call his mother, as he promised Marc he would. In the final scene, we learn the virus has spread globally, spiraling completely out of control. Governments are helpless, and the world is facing catastrophic destruction. And with that, our story ends. Stay tuned for new videos and summaries. Peace.